Yo, I'm Tier. Welcome back. How you feeling? To another reaction. I feel like it's only fair since I watched the evolution of Spider-Man. We watched the evolution of Batman. Matt Reeves' Batman is unlike anything we probably gonna ever see. So let's find out if this is true or not. How's everybody feeling? I'm feeling good. Let's get it. Play.
Batman, of all of the characters, more so than Superman, Batman is the one who really benefits from different interpretations and different interpretations that change over time, both in the comics and
make sure you give
in
this video a
movies.
like and
I
subscribe,
think
please.
success of
Share,
our movies,
talk about it.
the prior success,
brother out.
Tim Burton's movies. I mean, I
Edit that out.
you see
My
that
bad.
very,
Fuck that
very
shit.
clearly. And then
Sorry.
moving on to Zack Snyder's interpretation, and now there'll be, Rob's version. I think it's really true that Batman is owned and interpreted differently by different generations, and it's one of the things that's kept that character alive and vital over the years, and I think will continue to.
From Adam West's campy portrayal to Chris Nolan's grounded take, every director's version of Batman has forged their own cinematic identity. Because of the character's ever-changing nature,
Tell me who's your
never a
favorite
case
Batman?
where one adaptation of Batman is identical to other iterations of the character. Because Batman can be written to reflect any era imaginable, he has the unique ability of capturing the cultural zeitgeist, allowing him to remain a relevant character even years after his original
That
creation.
Batman by guys like was
With
actually
another version
great.
of Batman making his
Wasn't
way
just
to the
good,
big
that shit was
screen,
awesome.
it's about time we take a look at the past live-action adaptations
One
of
of the best
character
animation
to
Batman
see
movies
how
I've
each
seen in a long
version
time.
distinguish themselves from each other. Anyways, let's get started.
Crime stalking our city by night and day is on the increase.
Hey, I watched
Our
all these.
undermanned police force is helpless
I'm a
to
big
cope with
Batman
the
fan.
situation.
I watched all this shit.
But they have an ally.
Have any of y'all?
Batman.
The first
Go back
live-action
and watch
Batman
Nation.
was played by
They
both
not
Lewis
that
Wilson and
bad.
David Lowery in the Batman movie serials from the 1940s. Each serial consisted of 15 episodes and involved Batman fighting a villain who possessed some kind of fantastical machine, like a device that could mind control its victims, or a machine that could control vehicles.
Captain George, return to your station.
Upon your first watch, you instantly notice that these serials are a product of their time. For one thing, the acting is incredibly average. Lewis Wilson and Robert Lowery didn't do anything special with their parts. Their performances as Bruce Wayne and Batman come across as boring, stiff, and uninteresting. In fact, there's no distinct difference between the two personas.
Come on, Bruce. The excitement will be good for you.
Oh, Vicky, please. I'm so tired.
I'm not the least bit surprised.
Not only did Bruce Wayne lack any form of charisma whatsoever, but Batman couldn't be less intimidating if he tried. It didn't help that his costume and fight scenes honestly looked ridiculous to see on screen.
He's out all right. Yeah, we'll put him in the box.
These criticisms can be forgiven to an extent due to the fact that these serials were given very low budgets, so elements such as Wayne Manor being swapped for a middle-class home, the Batmobile being a regular unmodified car, and Batman being a government agent instead of a rich billionaire are creative choices that can be
Being a
forgiven.
government agent.
Fun fact: the Batman movie serials introduced a lot of elements into the Batman mythos, such as the first use of the traditional Batcave, and introducing Alfred's skinny mustache look that became a staple of the character. The next live-action Batman was portrayed by Adam West in the Batman TV series, created by
And they got an arrow.
Dozier.
They got an arrow up. Arrowverse
That was
cameo.
more in line with the Silver
Well, the
Age
Crisis-
era
the
of
Crisis
comics. In fact, the whole point of the series was to bring those comics to life. The colorful visuals
wish
and the
Adam West was
cartoonish
alive
production
to been
design, combined with the over-the-top acting and fantastical plots, made it seem like the Silver Age comics came to life. This was a show that embraced the campy nature of its source material. The villains had henchmen, and the action scenes were packed full of visual sound effects. Adam West knew exactly the type of show he was in. His performance as Batman and Bruce Wayne was charismatic, over the top, and quirky. His manner of speaking and his body language perfectly reflected the type of show he was in, constantly reminding us about the importance of drinking milk and eating vegetables.
Sorry, Batman. I'm afraid the boy is underage.
It's the law.
The Batman TV series was one of the biggest shows of the 1960s and fit right in with the other campy shows and films of the time. The series was so popular, in fact, that it spawned its own big-budget film and began to influence the comics it was based off of, being solely responsible for introducing Riddler's iconic bowler hat and suit look to the Batman mythos. After the cancellation of the Batman series, it took many years for Batman to gain mainstream attention. However, this time was a darker and more serious approach to the character. Enter Tim Burton's Batman, a gothic, fantastical,
I love this
and
Batman.
noir reinvention of the character that perfectly reflected Tim Burton's creative vision. Although Tim Burton has admitted to never reading a Batman comic in his life, the elements he introduced into the mythos forever influenced the character for years to come.
Right.
Arguably, the best element of Tim Burton's Batman films was the production design. His version of the Batmobile looked incredibly unique and unlike any Batmobile we've seen to that point. It was fast and slim, but also incredibly powerful and versatile. However, the crown jewel of Burton's Batman films is not the Batmobile, but Gotham City itself. Unlike the past Batman adaptations, where Gotham City was a soundstage devoid of any personality, Tim Burton's Gotham was a hellish metropolis filled with gothic buildings and dark smoky alleyways. This depressing aesthetic for Gotham helped create one of the darkest and most depressing looking cities in live action. With a city this bleak and grim, its version of Batman would need to be a lot more unforgiving and cruel when compared to the past.
You know, he did
we've
that whole
seen.
cape thing like that
Portrayed
one
by
time in the
actor
movie
Michael Keaton,
and never done that
this
shit
was a
again.
Batman that embraced his dark side. Upon your first viewing of Batman
That was your
89,
fan service
the
for the
first
Adam
mention
West.
of Batman portrays him as a heartless murderer.
5 stories straight down. There wasn't no blood in the body. No shit. It was all over the pavement.
This was a Batman that was clearly cold and disturbed. Contrast this with how Bruce Wayne was portrayed as awkward and charismatic, and it's safe to say that Michael Keaton
You
by
wanna get
that
nuts?
point
Let's get
created
nuts!
the best duality between the two personas. The elements that makes Keaton's Batman stand out from all the other versions is the fact that he seems to enjoy killing the criminals he comes across. There are several instances where Batman purposely causes the death of others, even when they present no threat to him or the people around him. It's pretty clear that Burton's Batman is completely insane and is somebody you should avoid at all costs. Fun fact: Tim Burton's Batman films were directly responsible for Gotham City.
So
and the
I'm not going to be.
Batmobile looking
I
much
would not
more
be
unique
surprised if
and
he's
creative
flat.
in the
That,
comics,
I'm not
shows,
surprised.
and
That's
even
why
films.
it's rumored that he's
Burton was
Flashpoint
also
Batman, which I
responsible
believe
for
in. I haven't looked at
introducing
nothing like that,
Batman's
but
iconic
I'm pretty
grapple
sure
gun
he is
to his
Flashpoint
arsenal
Batman.
of gadgets.
So, Danny, what did you think of the movie?
It was very violent.
He's not going to be Thomas Wayne, but
total
he's going to
attack
be
against kids,
Flashpoint
the whole
Batman.
movie. Everything that kids love.
But I do think that the marketing confused us a little, and a lot of the reason that we went to see it was based on what my memories of Batman were from when I was a child.
Well, my biggest complaint is that we have a classic illustration here of kind of the Hollywood and the corporate community being out of touch with the family and out of touch with kids. I mean, McDonald's has apologized to us. They're embarrassed really now that they've thought it through.
You don't want me to make another one, do you? And they go, oh, no. And I just said, no, I know you did. And so we just stopped it right there.
With the unexpected reaction to Batman Returns,
I thought that shit
booted
was
Tim
lit.
Burton off the Batman
Like,
franchise.
I thought that shit
It was
was
clear
lit.
at this
Like,
point
real
that
shit.
Warner Brothers
I
was
thought
looking
that
to
was-
take
Other
Batman in a
than
more
Batman
lighthearted
only been in
direction.
for like 30
Enter
seconds
Joel
for real in that
Schumacher,
movie.
a
I feel like that
filmmaker who
was
was known
better
for
than
his
the first one.
darker and more atmospheric films. At first glance, he seemed like the perfect choice to continue Tim Burton's Batman films. However, Schumacher viewed Batman as a more lighthearted character that the whole family could watch.
Batman is a comic book. It's supposed to be a comic book. It was created in 1939 to be a comic book. We made a living comic book.
Just take a look at the film's production design. The visuals were noticeably more bright and vibrant, and Gotham City took on a more theme park aesthetic, with every corner of the city assaulting your eyes with bright neon visuals. Somehow, Schumacher's world seemed more detached from reality than even Burton, so his version of Batman would of course reflect this new fantastical world.
Nipples.
Portrayed by both Val Kilmer and George Clooney, Batman in this world is okay. He doesn't really come off as intimidating like Burton's Batman, nor is he as quirky as Adam
Yeah,
West.
damn, you see that jaw
He's
space
sort
between
of in the
his
middle ground when it
cowl
comes
and
to
his
personality,
damn.
and that was intentional. This version of Batman was meant to be as idealized as possible, with even his suit immortalizing him as a Greek figure of heroic morals. Schumacher's films did lean into the fantastical nature of the Batman character. The Batcave was packed full of different gadgets and a multitude of different Batsuits. The villains were theatrical and over the top, and didn't have a justifiable reason for their madness. Bruce Wayne somehow built an expansive tunnel into the Batcave, even though it makes no logical sense. These films are not really meant to be taken seriously,
It does
but with
not.
the film Batman and Robin, they made it clear that these films were ultimately giant commercials for consumer products.
Tell us, Mr. Wayne, what do you fear?
I did not. Val Kilmer was okay. George Clooney sucks.
If you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to
I like Christian Bale. He was cool.
then you become something else entirely.
My pets lost one. That's frightened me. Time my enemies shared my dread.
After the failure of Batman and Robin, Warner Brothers decided to return Batman to his dark noir roots. Many directors approached Warner with their own ideas to continue the franchise. However, it was Christopher Nolan, who at the time was a small indie director, that had a pitch that was so good that the studio couldn't possibly refuse. Nolan had no interest in returning to the fantastical nature of past Batman films. Instead, he opted to inject Batman with what he called a cinematic reality, which basically means that he took a fantastical character like Batman and placed him inside a reality that wasn't too different from our own. Unlike the past Batman adaptations that existed in a fantastical world, Nolan's world was grounded in what he called realistic textures, which basically means that he wanted the events to feel and look like they could occur in our world. This was not an ultra-realistic world, just a world that was made to look and feel real, but still contain grandiose sci-fi elements. This approach to a grounded world is what allowed Nolan to bring in elements such as a secret ninja society, and Batman gaining a majority of his gadgets
I
from
think
a
that
failed
single
military
track car
project.
shit is stupid.
Since this grounded world was heightened, it needed a version of Batman that was once again intimidating, highly resourceful, and could believably operate in this reality. Played by actor Christian Bale, Batman in this world was not just a violent vigilante in a suit. Instead, this was a Batman that embraced symbolism. Throughout the Dark Knight trilogy, it's made clear that Batman is worth more as a symbol than a man.
People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I can't do that as Bruce Wayne. As a man, from flesh and blood, I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting.
Unlike the past iterations, this was a Bruce Wayne that went through a multi-film arc, an arc that involved him overcoming his childhood trauma in order to transcend his tragic past to not only save Gotham City, but to ultimately save himself.
That was good. Ben Affleck, the best Batman of all time. To this date, right now, Ben Affleck is the best. Nobody's better than him. As Batman and Bruce Wayne, he called it both. He got it both. Hands the fuck down. Argue with me, fight with me. I don't care what you say. Ben Affleck got both. Period.
The feeling of powerlessness that turns good men cruel.
Arguably, the most divisive version of Batman was portrayed by Ben Affleck in the DC Extended Universe. Director Zack Snyder made the bold choice of framing Batman as the villain in his first appearance, which is made abundantly clear upon his first scene. Batman in this entire sequence is portrayed as a terrifying and cruel creature of the night, coming across as more of a horror movie villain than a hero, to the point where even the people he saves are afraid of his presence. This This is a Batman that has abandoned his one code, a Batman that has lost his way so much he has no problem killing the criminals he comes across and has become completely apathetic to the lives he destroys. Batman in this story is a man who has abandoned his heroics, no longer a symbol of hope for Gotham, but a cruel and violent Punisher who's embraced a new twisted image of himself. In the end, the whole point of Ben Affleck's Batman is that he was supposed to go through a redemption arc, learning from his past mistakes, which eventually leads him to sacrifice his own life to save the world.
I'm glad he
film,
didn't see. I'm
and
tired.
also what I
Everybody
try to do
saying this.
in an almost Hitchcockian sense
I'm
is
tired. Batman
use
keep
the
killing
camera
himself.
and use the
Killing
storytelling
everybody.
so that you become the character and you empathize with that point of view. And I think there's a chance to do an almost noir-driven detective version of Batman that is point of view driven in a very, very powerful way that hopefully is going to connect you to what's going on inside of his head and inside of his heart.
It's been nearly a decade since the last Batman film released in theaters, and now it's time for him to make his big screen return. Directed by Matt Reeves, who's known for his intimate and perspective-driven films, The Batman is set to be the first noir mystery Batman film that has a heavy focus on his detective skills. Set in year 2 of his career, the film focuses on Bruce Wayne uncovering the deep-rooted corruption tied to Gotham City and his family legacy. Similar to Christopher Nolan's approach, Matt Reeves' version truly operates in a grounded world. In fact, Reeves himself stated that he wanted to ground his world in the way it was done in Batman Year 1. This is perfectly reflected in how this Batman is portrayed. What I really love about Matt Reeves' Batman is how he strips down the heroic and power fantasy elements of the character, revealing how a Batman in our reality would truly operate. When other versions of Bruce Wayne put on the Batsuit, they become the best versions of themselves. They become pillars of heroism, and oftentimes are devoid of any apparent flaws. However, Matt Reeves' Batman still hasn't figured everything out even after a year and a half of being Batman, and has had almost no effect on Gotham City's crime rate. Instead of wearing military-grade Kevlar, this version of Batman dons a mix of fabric and a metallic body armor for protection. This combination of material is what allows the suit to overall look rough and put together. Even his Batmobile, which has been shown to be incredibly futuristic or militaristic in other iterations, is a modified muscle car that looks fast, loud, and powerful. Let's make one thing clear. This version of Batman is not heroic in the slightest. His violence is not framed as cool. Instead, it's meant to make the audience feel uncomfortable and portray Batman as incredibly deranged and desperate. With a version of Gotham City that looks this gothic, depressing, and corrupt, it makes sense why such a violent and unstable version of Batman would emerge from the shadows. Unlike the past iterations, this is a Bruce Wayne that is truly obsessed with being Batman, to the point where he doesn't care about his own well-being and purposely goes out of his way to thrust himself into danger. According to Robert Pattinson, Batman in this film is still yet to create his Bruce Wayne persona, so his self-destructive tendencies and total disregard for his own safety paints Bruce Wayne as a man who has embraced apathy, never truly moving on from his past and viewing Batman as a tool to selfishly release his anger. Even Wayne Manor looks decrepit and uncared for, as if he's desperately trying to cling on to the memories of the past. However, as the film progresses, Bruce will slowly begin to view Batman as more of a symbol of hope instead of a vengeful tool. Every version of Batman has their own pros and cons. However, thanks to the character's sheer versatility, Batman will continue to change and evolve depending on the creative team attached to it.
I can't wait for that. Alright, that's it of that. So y'all tell me what y'all think. Who was y'all favorite Batman? Can't wait for that movie. Like, subscribe. I'm Tier. Peace. 19 fucking minutes.